Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that attempts to demystify business for artists. And today, my guest is Sheri Fink. Sheri Fink is an inspirational speaker, a #1 best-selling award-winning author, and the creator of the whimsical world of Sheri Fink inspirational brand. She's an independent author, and man, did she deliver. She comes from a marketing background, and her take on how to take your corporate marketing training and transition it into selling books is fantastic. Along with everything she says. She was, to use a word she used over and over in the podcast, magical. But before we get started, I have a question. Do you hate commercials? I do too. That's why I created a premium version of The Business of Art, full of all of our hard lessons, ranterludes, and mini seasons from the first 100 episodes of our show. That's not the interviews, but it is everything else, every lesson that I've given in the first 100 plus episodes of this show, almost 9 hours of content, and you can get it now for just $20. Head on over to thebusinessofart.us/volume1 and check it out today. It's a great way to support the show and listen to all of our valuable content without any of these bullshit commercials. Before we get started, I want to apologize. A couple of times people came to the door, rang the doorbell, and there was some dog barking. That's what you get for working from home. So hope you can get through that because this is packed full of value. And with that being said, let's get on with the show. Take it away, Sheri. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
Well, I'm passionate about a lot of things. I think right now the thing that most sings to me is really igniting the spark within people to believe that their dreams are possible, even if they've abandoned them long ago, and to bring them back in alignment with who they really are and the unlimited possibilities for getting what they want out of life. And especially when that's in alignment with my mission, which is to inspire and delight people while planting seeds of self-esteem. That really, really lights my fire.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is that something that came about? Can you talk a little bit about how that came about? Was that part of, did the books and the self-esteem come first? Did the inspiration come first? Like, how did that all come out? Can you take us back a little bit to your origin story?
Sure. So I'm an accidental author. I think as with a lot of other artists, like our craft finds us over time when it's meant to be brought into the world. And that was definitely the case with me. If I look back to childhood, I was always creating things. I was, creating books and stories and board games and dolls. And I had all these little businesses I was running. And like my family, I grew up in rural Virginia, very humbly. No one had ever seen an entrepreneur like that in my family before. So it wasn't really appreciated. And actually was sometimes embarrassing to my family. But I kind of put that aside because I knew that in order to get into college, like I had to work really hard. I needed to get a scholarship. No one in my family had ever gone before. So I, kind of set aside my artistic endeavors and focused hard on school, did really well, ended up, getting into college and ultimately got my master's in a business management program too. And during that time, I associated success with climbing the corporate ladder, as many of us do. And I was in online marketing for a lot of big brands. I was very blessed in my career. I learned so much. I worked, in a lot of big companies and with a lot of really talented people. And I kept thinking, well, the next job is going to be more fulfilling, or the next position, the next promotion, the next company, the next, whatever it was, it just kept jumping. Like it was never where I was already at. And so I just kept doing the same thing, putting my head down, working really hard, and just hoping that it was going to get me where I wanted to go. But when I got up to the top of the ladder, it didn't feel the way that I thought it would feel. And even though I had what most people would perceive to be a very sexy job, like with the title and the travel and the responsibility and the money and, all these things that I had associated with success in the past, it just felt really unfulfilling to me. So I was going through this period of soul searching, and I'm still doing my job, but I just had this feeling like something's off, something's not right. And of course, associated it with myself, I felt like I was ungrateful because I'd worked so hard and gotten there and not appreciated it the way I thought I would. And during that time, I don't know if you ever had this where, you're going through something and it's like really hard for you, and then something else happens and makes it a lot worse. Like, but that's exactly what happened to me. So as I'm going through this soul searching, I had a gift of adversity, and it was in the form of another woman in my office bullying me. And it was really bad. Like, it was very hard for me to deal with. Like, I'm a pretty compassionate person, and I just didn't know how to handle it. And I tried everything and nothing was working. And, I'm a rock star in the company, but I got this embarrassing little secret, and I just didn't know what to do. But I knew I wasn't going to run away. I knew I didn't want to give up because I worked really damn hard to get there. And I am not someone who runs away from challenge. So I was driving to work one day after dealing with this for a few months, and I was just crying. Like, I was so, I was just so upset, that I couldn't make a difference here. And I was trying very hard to figure out what to do. And I had this moment of complete surrender. And I remember thinking, I will do anything. Show me what to do. I will do anything to make this better. And in that moment, something very miraculous happened. And this idea came to me about a rose that grows up in a weed bed and thinks that she's the weed. And then the story wrote through me in the car, like literally. Like, I pulled the back of an envelope out of my purse. I wrote it with a mini golf pencil because that's what I had in the console. I wrote it on the stoplights on my way to work, and I lived in Orange County, so there were lots of stoplights. And I just wrote the story from the very beginning. There once was a little rose that grew amid a bed of flourishing weeds on the side of the road, all the way through to the end. And when I got to work, I was like, wow, what was that? Because at that point in my life, I had never meditated. I wasn't a spiritual person. I guess I had just gotten to the point where I had no more ego about it. Like, I was so desperate to change it that I was open. And I think that was the only way that would have come through me. And so I put that story away immediately. I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't think that much about it, except I did draw a line in the sand that day. I decided a year from today, I will either be working in a different company, I will be doing something different, or working for myself. And secretly, I really wanted to work for myself, but that terrified me, because I had spent my whole career building it in this other direction where I had the quote unquote stable income and insurance and, all the things that go along with the corporate shackles. So, yeah. So that was an important decision that I made that day. And I think a lot of times when people are considering an entrepreneurial endeavor or an art, pursuing something for art, they think they have to make a decision right then and they have to jump immediately before they're ready. And that's not true. Like, I saved as much of my income as possible for that next year. I knew I was leaving. I didn't tell anybody else, but I knew it. And I planned for it. Could I have planned better? Probably. But I just had made a deal with myself. And so fast forward a year later, and of course I had postponed it to the actual day because I was taking care of everybody else. Like the company, they wanted me to speak at the company conference. I was like, okay, I'll do that. Then we had a bunch of clients who had big projects that were launching. And I was like, well, let me see them through that. I did start this project. Let me finish it. And then I thought, well, let me groom my team. Let me get a successor. Let me help them out as much as I possibly can. And of course, it was at my own expense. So finally, that anniversary came up, and I'm sitting at my desk at work, and I'm very aware that that's the day. And I'm like, am I a woman of my word or not? Do I keep my word to everybody but myself? And I was like having some serious emotion about it. And you know what I did? I typed up my resignation. I gave it to my boss. He called the company president immediately. He came in. He tried to talk me out of it. They thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was crazy. And I didn't say like I was writing books because I didn't know I was going to do that yet. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just took the leap, and I left on good terms. And I'm very grateful for my experiences there. And when I left, I had planned to go to a success conference, and it was Jack Canfield's Breakthrough to Success. And I was very excited to meet him because I had read a few of his books, like The Power of Focus, The Success Principles, The Aladdin Factor. I had read those years before, maybe a decade before I actually met him. And I decided one day I'm going to meet this man. He inspires me very much. So I go to his conference, and while I'm there, I end up having a random conversation with a woman I've never met before, and she keeps asking me about writing for some reason. And I was like, I don't have any writing. Like I've written business and marketing things, really boring. And she's like, no, 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 you've got more. And she would not leave me alone. Like she kept asking me, and I was like, fine. I'm like going through the files in my mind, and I'm like, I have this little story. And she said, tell me. And so I told her the story, and she says, I just got goosebumps. You have to do something with that because my grandchildren need that message. And it was so strange because I was in this self-protective mode. I didn't want to put myself out there too much because I had been bullied, and I was very sensitive to that. And then when I shared that story and I saw her excitement about it, like this light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, maybe it's a children's book. And then she introduced me to all these other people at the conference as the woman working on a children's book. And so I was having all these awkward conversations. Like people would say, oh, you're doing this. And I'm like, no, it's a misunderstanding, and then they would look confused and they would walk away. And finally I was like, oh, fine. I'm just going to say yes. Next person, I'm never going to see them again. I'm just going to say yes. And so that's what I did. And the funniest thing happened. Nobody laughed. Like everybody was so excited, and they're like, oh my gosh, my nephew needs that message. Oh, my daughter's being bullied at her school, or my grown daughter is being bullied in her office. I wanted that book. When can I pre-order? And so I started thinking like, maybe I could help other people. Maybe I could use my pain to really change other people's lives. And I got really excited about that idea, so much so that at the end of the event, so Jack does this thing called a Come As You Will Be party, and it's brilliant and super fun. So the way it works is that all 300 people who are at the conference walk through the door that evening as if all their dreams have come true in the last 5 years. So everybody plays along. You have to be clear about what you want because you have to embody it. And it's so powerful. And so what I did right before the party, because I decided I'm done playing to avoid losing. I was like, I'm going to play to win in life. And I went down to the business center. I made this ridiculous magazine cover with me on it. And I felt so embarrassed. And I also made a book cover. And I hadn't read the story for over a year. But I thought, okay, I'm just going to call it The Little Rose. And I slapped it onto a book that I brought because, yes, I travel with actual books. And then I took it to the party. And I didn't show people. Like I just held it like close to me. I didn't want anybody to see it. And even when I met Jack, I was so nervous. I could barely speak to him. I just asked for a picture. I flashed it for the photo really fast, and then I ran away. Well, 1 year later, I had a #1 best-selling book called The Little Rose and my first magazine cover. And I could never have anticipated that would happen.
That's
and
awesome.
So when I got back from that conference, I was on fire. I was scared as hell, but I was so passionate about the idea of being able to help kids because I thought, well, what if I had known from a very early age how precious I was? What if I had known that I had limitless possibilities? What kind of decisions would I have made? Would I have really been as shy as I was? Would I have, would I have settled for the path that maybe wasn't the best for me just because it was the one everybody else wanted me to be on? So that's why I decided to publish the first book, and thank God I did because people tell me it makes a huge difference, and my life is completely changed as a result of taking that leap.
Right, that's an awesome story, and one that usually ends with, and then I wrote some nonfiction book about a thing. It's usually like when someone says I was a high-powered and I got out of the thing, they become, they tend to write a nonfiction book, and you've done sort of have that same trajectory and path. I was, working on these big companies, doing these big marketing campaigns, rising up the ladder, and then you left to do what, in my estimation, is probably the hardest thing to do in sales as someone who's sold a lot of things, which is sell a product that has an ephemeral, not real pain point. Not to say that the pain point that you're dealing with is not real, but it's not like how to lose 50 pounds in 20 days or how to become, how to retire in 3 years or how to flip a house. Those things that you can point to and say, oh, I know that pain point, and make a very easy, Facebook ad campaign. Could you talk a little bit about how you went about, building an audience and marketing this book before and after it came out?
Sure. Well, before it came out, I was kind of in stealth mode. I didn't publicly talk about it too much because I was afraid I would chicken out. I'm like, I just gotta go. I gotta go fast, before I change my mind. So what I did, though, behind the scenes was I reached out to people in my network, and I have been very blessed to work with lots of people over the years, and I'm a connector naturally. Like, if I knew that you really love the Cubs and I had a connection there, I would try to get you in there. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how I am. Always have been. And I had rarely asked for anything during my corporate career. So I went to my connections, and with shaky knees, I asked, who do you know who has written a book? Who do you know who's a best-selling author? Who do you know who might illustrate a book? Who do you know? I was just asking, do you know anyone? And would you introduce me? And people bent over backwards to help me. And I ended up having these conversations with best-selling authors because I in my perception, that was a measure of success. And, I've always been entrepreneurial. I don't do things half-assed. Like, when I commit to something, I'm in. And I see it through. And I finish strong. And so my goal from the moment I began was to be a best-selling author. And I guess that sounds like an ego goal, but what I've learned is that it doesn't matter. Like, it opens a bigger door for you that you may not get otherwise just having a book, because so many people have a book these days. So that was my goal. I talked to people who had done it. I asked them, what did you do that worked the best? What did you do that you wouldn't do again? And then, based on my mission to help kids and with their self-esteem, who else do you think I should talk to? And if I give you a little blurb about me, would you introduce me? And most people said yes. Most people helped me. And, these conversations, I would have 15 minutes with them, and I would be so scared. But I was so grateful for their time. So afterward, I would send them a thank you. And then when the book was available on Amazon, I wasn't even promoting yet, because I was planning. The book came out March 22nd, 2011. And I was planning to do a big release in July. I believe it was July 11th. And what happened, though, was I sent out an email to each of the people that was kind enough to connect me and the people who were kind enough to have the conversations with me. And I said, oh, my gosh, my book is on Amazon. Can you believe this? Like, take a look. And I couldn't have done it without your help. Well, unbeknownst to me, those folks took that link and posted about it on social media, sent emails out to their fan bases, and told them how proud they were of me. And then magically, my book hit #1 on the Amazon bestseller list 2 weeks after it debuted. And even more miraculously, stayed at #1 for over 60 weeks.
Wow.
Changed everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to something that you said in there, because I think it's probably one of the most powerful things, because you did a lot before you launched a book. Like, that's not stealth mode, that's building your network. And that's even before then, providing value for people. And, we always talk about on the show about most people have a sales first mentality. You begin and end. Your customer begins and ends with whether they will buy your product or not. But it sounds like you didn't have that mentality when you were working. You had more value first mentality, which is what we try and instill into our viewers or listeners, I suppose, is you need to be providing value to people so that when you need something, and providing so much value that at some point when you make a withdrawal from the Goodwill Bank, they'll be there enthusiastically ready to help you.
Oh, and that's a really good point. And for me, like, this is something it wasn't a strategy. Like, I genuinely care about people. You know what I mean? Like, I stumbled upon the idea, like this finding that relationships are what really matter. And when I was in the marketing world, they mattered too, but it was more scientific, I guess. Like if avatar A likes this, they'll also like this. In this business, at least for me, it's more like, wow, that person is passionate about bringing the art of this into the world. And after I would have those calls with them, I would talk about them on social media because I love sharing that. I'm excited when someone is like charged up about life and doing something that matters. Like, so I shared first without intending that they would do anything for me. So it was just really beautiful. And I mean, it was so amazing. Like someone had to call me and tell me to buy champagne. Like I didn't even know, like I didn't understand that my book was number one.
Right.
It was very exciting once they explained it to me, but
Right.
So it's just, I think, especially for the listeners, like it's very, the word I keep thinking of is magical. Like what happens when you work really hard and you're in alignment with something bigger than yourself and you're moving in the direction, you're holding the vision, things can happen a lot faster than you think.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because it is not going to be easy, but it can happen, and more magic than you can anticipate can unfold, and it's worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's a famous expression that people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But I think the main point of having a vision is that you can sort of cut away things that don't fulfill that vision too. I mean, you could ask that question, which I think is probably the most powerful networking question. Who else do you know that I should talk to about this?
Yeah.
But if you don't have that vision set, if you don't know where you're going, how do you ask that question? How do you know the right questions to ask?
Well, I think you just get in alignment with the passion for it. Like for me, I was scared every single day. Every single day. Like I was scared to tell my origin story. I was still embarrassed about it. And then what I've learned over time is that every time I tell that story, I guarantee you, after this show goes on the air, I will have at least one person contact me, at least, and say they're going through that, they went through that, their best friend's going through it, their child is going through it, always, whether I'm on stage, on a show, like it doesn't matter. Like we all have these experiences and we don't always talk about it. We don't always feel safe talking about it. So by me being open about it, it allows other people to be free too. And I think that's the biggest thing is if you're in alignment with the passion that you have for the difference you want to make, you will jump over brick walls. You will leap over the fire because it matters more than your tiny little ego. So every day what I would do is I would visualize like having an impact for kids. I would visualize being able to speak to them and tell them how precious they are and like have them really feel it, and like so I could see them get it, And when I did that, my fear got really small in comparison to the fire of my passion for it. And then I would take the action, even though I was scared. And some actions, they don't work. Some people, they don't want to chat with you, and that's okay. They've got their own mission and they're working on it. That's cool. But yeah, I think going after it, if you get in touch with why you're doing it, the actual words you use are less important than the energy you have behind it. It's the intention,
And the passion.
Yeah. Yeah, because people can tell, like I can tell. I get approached a lot, and I can tell when somebody just wants something. There's a huge difference between someone who's a fan, who is in alignment with my mission and cares about what I'm doing in the world, and they're asking something, versus somebody who doesn't even know what books I wrote, but they think, oh, well, she's famous, so I'm going to ask for something. She can give me something. That's a totally different mentality, and people can tell. So I think that's the energy you put behind your intention is much more important than the actual words you use.
Absolutely, and you said something that was important that we I kind of glazed over before, but I want to go back to, which is the this idea that you did when you did all these things for people, or when you talked to these people, it was general enthusiastic passion. It wasn't you doing something expecting a return. I feel like that's such this sort of game that people play with networking, which is I'm going to do this for you, and then I'm going to hold on to this favor that I did for you, and then I'm going to ask for something in return later. And I think that's so detrimental to, and inauthentic to the process of, creating and building a network. I love what you talked about, doing these things, not expecting things to return, and then good things came back. Maybe not from the people necessarily that you actually did the nice thing for, but just it comes back in spades when you do these things with no intention of getting it in return, as long as you bring that passion.
Yeah, well, I did it because it was the right thing, not because I wanted something. You know what I mean? Like, I was genuinely grateful that these people took the time. And I think a lot of times, like, especially in the business world, like, I know like our timelines were so short and we were pushing. And what I've learned, like as an entrepreneur, and it's been difficult to transition into that at times because my background, was so driven, and I'm still driven, but I'm less interested in pushing for what I want, and I'm more interested in becoming the best magnet for what I want to attract.
Oh, man.
And that is where the magic really happens.
Absolutely. I love that idea because, that's one of the things that I've been working on in the past year is instead of having to chase down every single lead and like push for every single thing and beat down every door to get people to listen to the show or buy our books or pay attention to our brand, it's how do you reverse that and become a magnet so the right people find you?
Yes. It's like, some of the best things that have ever happened to me has happened serendipitously. People ask me, how do you get all these speaking gigs? And I say, well, I don't know. The people find me. They come see me as something else. They tell a friend. That person comes and hires me to do something else. Or like how I met you was super random. Like your neighbor at Comic-Con, at LA Comic-Con, was my neighbor at an Indie Author Day event a few weeks ago. And so I said hi to him and I was like, oh my gosh, how's it going? And he's like, and I was asking about the show, and because I've never done a book signing at a Comic-Con. And he said, oh, you should talk to my friend Russell. Come over here and meet him. And then I ended up talking with you, and like, here I am on your show.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and that's what I find too. It's, the more times you are open to these things and the more places that you are the more open you are to these possibilities, and the more you genuinely put yourself out there, the more good things end up coming randomly. Like you were talking about, same thing with me with, doing moderating at panels or being introduced to people like yourself or just anything. As you put yourself out there more and more and sort of like you were talking about, find people that resonate with you and just put in this genuineness and authenticity into the world, the more you do that, the more comes back. And it's pretty insane how that happens.
Yeah, and the more yourself you are, the better and faster it happens. Like the day I met you, I'm sure you remember, probably, I was dressed as Harley Quinn. Like I had so much fun doing cosplay, and like most people would think, oh, if I don't want to, dress up just in case I'm going to meet somebody that business wise. No, like the more you are, the more you'll attract people who resonate with you. And I tell authors that all the time because they're terrified. Like they're terrified to do signings and to do speaking. And they're like, what if I say the wrong thing? I was like, speak from the heart. You could never say the wrong thing. Ever.
Absolutely. And, I say that too, when people come to my table and pick up my book. And I don't hard sell them. I tell them about the book, but, when they're a little bit hesitant, I always say, look, man, there's no obligation. I'm here to find people who resonate on the same frequency of weird as I do. It ain't going to be everybody. It ain't going to be most people, but enough people will resonate on the right frequency of weird that they'll give me a shot.
Yeah. And I think, too, there's something, because I'm an independent author, I think there's something even more fascinating about that to people, because a lot of times people have been told there's one way. And writers get very frustrated because maybe they're trying to go that one way and it feels like they're beating themselves up against a brick wall all the time. And then here I come in, like having a lot more fun and creating pretty quickly and, you know, growing my business and enjoying what I'm doing. And they're like, wow, like, how are you doing that? You know? And it's like, wow, I've learned a lot over the years doing it this way. And it's not the only way. And I think that message is also really important to artists and entrepreneurs of all types, is that there's more than one way. Like, my way isn't the right way. The old way isn't the right way. There's infinite number of ways for whatever you want to achieve. And to try to force yourself into the mold of someone else's path is just it's going to stifle your creativity and make you frustrated and make you burn a lot of energy that you otherwise could be investing in actually fulfilling your dream. So luckily for me, I didn't come from the book industry. I came from completely outside of it, and I never marketed books before. So I learned a lot through that, and I wasn't limited by the perceptions that the industry already had. I just went out and did it, and people were like, oh my God, I didn't know you could do that. You know?
So what are the best lessons that you took from your old industries into marketing books?
Okay. I would say it's about the people. I mean, that's the thing that I learned in corporate too. Like, no matter how big a team you run, no matter what your title is, the best way to work with people is to genuinely care about them. They will work overtime. They will get your project done faster if you actually care about them as a human being. And it's not a strategy. It's a way of being. You know what I mean? It sounds so basic, but people forget. Like, they forget so many times, especially when they're dealing with tech teams, because they'll assume all kinds of things about the other side not working hard. And that's not true. I mean, they have families to go home to. They've got a lot on their plate too. So I think people first is something that I inadvertently learned from my corporate experiences. I think too, like, I was really blessed to be given a lot of freedom in my careers. So in the different jobs that I had in marketing, a lot of times as I built trust with the organization, they would trust me with a bigger budget and they would let me test things. So I was having tons of fun testing things like Google Ads, 10 years ago. And it was, we were doing so well with it. Like, I was like figuring out a little bit of a science, a little bit of an art, and that type of playfulness, I guess, curiosity, willingness to try new things. Even if I have such a much lower budget to do it, like, that has served me well as an entrepreneur. And,
Any sort of marketing that you found works really, really well for yourself? Like, specifically Google Ads, Facebook ads, just in-person signings?
Well, I think it's a relationship business. So any channel where you can build an authentic relationship with your fans is going to be more effective than an ad, for me anyway. I've tried a lot of different things, but I think the best results I ever have is when I post stuff on Facebook. And not necessarily on my fan page, which has the larger following, but because of Facebook algorithms doesn't get displayed as often, mostly on my personal page. Like, when I speak from the heart, when I share something I'm excited about, when I, do those kinds of things, that resonates with people. And they tell me it does. And for every like or comment I get tons of private messages from people. And that means a lot to me, And then meeting people in person. There's no substitute for being there in person and being present with someone, like speaking on stage and then signing afterward and the people coming up. And there are sometimes, like, I would give a keynote and 80% of the room will be crying. It's incredible. And they'll come up to me afterward and they'll say, I have no idea why I'm crying. And I say, it's okay. It happens. I'm honored, So I feel like that moving experience that you get when you're in someone's presence and you can feel their heart and you know that they care about you and you care about them. And that is one of my favorite things, is the connection. Like, I love the creative part. I love to create and connect. And I always say, if I could create and connect and travel and just do those things, like, I would just be in bliss all the time, And so, yeah, I think any way that you can have an authentic connection, and that requires you being who you are, 100%. And that's the hard part, is letting go of the things that are not you and being willing to share with people like who you really are. Even if, like me, like you were in the corporate world, where I liken that to being kind of like a robot. But underneath, I was always a pink and sparkly unicorn, you know. and now I get to be that in real life for my business. So it's much more in alignment, and people can tell. And I mean, kids will write to me, grown-ups write to me. I mean, I had a fan who was a burn victim, and she has scars, you know, all over her body. And she's amazing. She does speaking and inspires people. And she wrote me a note and said, "I wish I was brave enough to have blue hair like you." And I'm looking at this woman and I'm thinking, are you crazy? Like, you are amazing. Like, you walk around every single day. Like, I can take my hair off. Like, you know, I don't have to have blue hair every day. But it's just so interesting, like, by being bold and being who you are, how it can inspire people to be more of who they are or who they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps sales too, to get back to the topics at hand of like, when you can make a genuine connection with somebody, they're more likely to buy your product. They're more likely to want to connect with you. They will more enthusiastically share the things that you have to say and become a brand ambassador for you. It's just a win-win. You get to like break out of the shell and like stop being scared of like being yourself. You get to connect with people more, which is my favorite part too. I mean, I'm very much the same way as you. Like, if I could just connect with people and create things, I would be very, very happy.
Yeah. And, you know, I think too, it's important for people to know that you build momentum over time. It doesn't come instantly. So, like, as you create more art, as you connect with people on a deeper level, as you continue those connections and relationship build over time, when you have a new book come out, it's so much easier. Now, when you cross a genre line, that's still a little bit hard. But children's books, for example, like, the momentum is there. Like, my last children's book went #1 bestseller on Amazon 6 months before it was available. I hadn't even released the cover art yet. And that's powerful.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So for me, like, I don't care for the word networking. Like, I don't network. I get to know people. Like, I build relationships with people because that's what matters. It's not about selling my book.
Sure, to me that's a byproduct. Like, that always happens.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It ends up like, when people have a connection with you, they end up buying your book. It may not be that specific person who ends up buying a book, because like we talked about, weird resonances. Like, you want your like, that person may not resonate on the same level of weird as you, but somehow, like, the more connections you make, the more sales that you make, and then the more connections that you make, and then the more that ball of momentum rolls.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, to me, it's always, as much as I need the sale. Like, I mean, we all have a mortgage to pay, right? Like, we all or rent to pay. We all have bills to pay. Like, the sales are necessary, but they are. When I moved to making sales a byproduct of everything else, like, my sales vastly increased, and to the point that, yeah, of course, you still look at it when like you're low in a month. But to me, you know, I always know that it's going to come. Like, I always know it's going to come because of all the connections. It's going to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and you set goals. Like, you definitely set goals. It doesn't mean that you're laissez-faire about your business. Not at all. It's just, it's less important the actual number. It's more important the impact.
Right.
And I measure the impact by the way I feel. So if I'm at an event and, you know, I'm speaking and I feel the magic between me and the audience, and people come up afterward and chat with me, like, that is so much more important than the final number. And typically the numbers are really good. So I think it just takes care of itself when you take care of your fans. And another thing I do behind the scenes is I pay attention to the super fans. So a super fan to me is someone who likes all the stuff on Facebook, who comments a lot, who buys all the books when they first come out. Someone, maybe they wrote me a letter once. You know, I pay attention to that and I nurture them. So I believe in rewarding loyalty. So like, for example, I had audiobooks for the Little Rose and the Little Seahorse that just came out a month ago, I guess, 5 weeks ago. And when they came out, I reached out to some of my super fans and said, hey, I really appreciate you being such a fan of my work and my mission. How would you like to receive a free audiobook edition of The Little Rose or The Little Seahorse? And people wrote back instantly. They were freaking out. It was like, it's such a small thing for me to be able to give, but people were so excited that I offered it to them. Everybody took me up on it. So it's, little things like that don't necessarily have to be in the public eye, or, every now and then I'll donate books to a cause, and they'll always say, oh, it's good PR. And I said, actually, I don't want any PR. Like, I'm giving it to you as a gift, straight up gift. And people are always shocked by that. And I'm just like, wow, like, what is our work coming to? Where people only do things if they can be public about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not what matters. People matter. Everything else will take care of itself.
I love that sentiment, because I measure it by the number of connections and the number of quality. I actually have metrics where it's like how many quality connections did you have? And if I don't really have, I do have mailing list numbers that my only real key metric is like how many people are on my mailing list. But really, out of that, like, what % of those people am I actually connecting with? Like, how many people at a show or at an event did I have a genuine connection with? And if I can hit those numbers, it ends up, all the other things end up like taking care of themselves. I know, like, people listen to these shows, and when I was on the other side listening to what we're talking about now, which is this sort of like magic feeling you get with connect, if you just have like enough connections and you do it for long enough, like, you'll have success because of magic. And I always listened to those shows and was like, that's horseshit. You just are trying to keep something secret. I'm like, no, I'm giving you, like, this is the actual thing. It's like,
this is gold.
This is the thing. If you just do for others and like treat them like humans and measure like your business by the amount of quality connections that you're making and the amount of impact that you're having, and maybe the amount of people on your mailing list, or like when I'm at a show, I know how many people I need to talk to get a sale. Generally, if I talk to enough people and I make a standard deviation curve, if I talk to X amount of people, I'll make X amount of sales. I have those sort of metrics, but really the metrics are, man, I made a lot of quality connections today. I'm probably going to have a pretty good month this month. And then, shockingly, it almost always ends up that if I made a lot of quality connections, if I've been like a good person and, given a lot of myself, then when it comes time to like look at those balance sheets, I go, oh, shockingly, I made a lot of quality connections, and I had a lot of, and I was able to make enough to hit my goal for this month.
Yeah, and it's, and it's not, it is a lot of work. Like, it's not just pure magic. Like, it just wakes up and it just happens. Like, no, it's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of thinking about where is the right place for me to be. Like, if you have 3 different speaking opportunities for the same day, which one's the best fit for you and your message? Which one is going to give you the most fulfillment? Does it make business sense to donate your time to this and instead of that? That kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of decisions being made behind the scenes, and then I'm constantly planting seeds. So I do media all the time. Like, some people that only do it for the month or 2 after something is released. I do it all year long, like at least 1 to 2 interviews a week. When I'm in heavy promotion mode, it could be 1 a day. Last year, when I was promoting the pre-orders for my romance novel, Cake in Bed, I was on minimum 1 a day for a month, sometimes 3 in 1 day. And so, it's constantly making connections. It's constantly getting the word out. And it's not all about the book, though. It's about the stories behind that. It's about the inspiration behind it. And one of the things that I'm getting a lot of joy from right now is helping other authors. So, and that's something I never really thought I would do, but it's a natural fit for me because I've learned so much And I have a passion for seeing other people's dreams come true. And when their book comes out and they become a best-selling author, it's like, it's an incredible feeling, having witnessed the growth that they undertook to have the courage to finish the book, to, have it be professional, to get it out into the world, to do their first speaking engagement, like all these things, like they had to grow and blossom in order to become the person who could hold that book in their hand. And I get to witness that, and sometimes I get to nurture it, and that is so fun for me. So my business, and just like art does too, it blossoms in ways sometimes that you don't expect. Like you're planting seeds all the time, and then, oh, wow, look at that. That over there is really amazing. Didn't know I planted that, but okay, I'll enjoy that too.
Right. Well, that goes back to, have you ever read The Pumpkin Plan?
No, I haven't.
So it kind of goes back to that state, which is The Pumpkin Plan by Michael Michalowicz. I've never heard his name said out loud. I've only read it, so I hope I'm saying it right.
Sounds good.
wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan, where he likened business to a pumpkin patch. It was like, you know how they make the pumpkins for like the huge pumpkins that are, the biggest pumpkin in the country, sort of like competitions. They basically plant all the pumpkin seeds, and they see which ones grow best, and then they plant those again, and they see which ones of those grow best, and then they plant those again, and then they see which of those grow best. And it's just a constant process of, planting a lot of seeds and seeing what harvests, and then planting those seeds and then seeing what harvests, until you get this very, very robust, amazingly huge pumpkins.
Wow. Yeah, I think it is like that. And it's like, which ones are the most fun too? So that's the other thing that I've learned from a strategy standpoint is like, once you have a book I'm just going to say books because that's my world. So my children's books came out in hardcover first. Then I had them converted and did the Kindle, Nook, and iTunes editions. Then recently I had 2 of them come out in audiobook format, and I was the narrator, which was really fun. And I thought, you know what? I want to be able to get these messages out to kids who maybe are in areas that can't invest in a hardcover book. So I'm going to go paperback too. And so a few weeks ago, released all 5 of the children's books in paperback edition. So I think once you have a piece of art or book or a song or whatever you've got, you can probably get that out into different channels too, and different formats that can continue to bring in additional sales that expand your market out. And then of course there's the foreign market too. So if you're an independent author, you can partner with agencies throughout the world to bring your books to other countries in their native languages.
Oh, well, hey, before we talk more, we gotta talk about this. We gotta work towards wrapping up, but this is something that I'm going through right now. I'm trying to find foreign rights agents. And as an independent person, I'd love to get your perspective on how you sort of nurtured those relationships. Did they come to you? Did you go to them?
All of them have come to me. And maybe I could have more if I was more aggressive about it and looked and sought them out. I've actually considered that too. It's on my long list. But yeah, they've found me and come to me. And I think primarily it's been through social media, or they watch the Amazon bestseller lists. And then occasionally it'll be someone met someone who met me, but they met at a conference, and then they'll introduce me. They'll say, oh, I think this German publisher was very interested when I told her your story. And then I'll have conversations with them directly.
Right. Yeah, it goes back to being a magnet, right, for the right kinds of opportunities.
Yes, and it's unpredictable too, right? Like I didn't know a year ago I was doing audiobooks. I was doing a reading and at a library, and the librarian said to me, you have a really amazing voice when you read these stories. The energy just comes through and it's mesmerizing. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you should do audiobooks. And I was like, huh? And they had a TV station there who was recording the event, and he said, hey, why don't you come to the studio early? Because I was having an interview in the studio the next day. Why don't you come early and record audiobooks of your books? We'll do it for you. I was like, really? Okay, universe, just put that in my lap. I'm going to say yes,
That's awesome.
So things like that, like you just don't know. And if you're really stuck on the path that you carve out, like, and I have a plan, don't get me wrong, I have a plan. But if I was really rigid with it, I would miss out on those little windows of opportunity that, that maybe are even more robust and more rewarding than what I have on the plan right now. So
Absolutely.
I think having goals and then being flexible in the way and the timing of their attainment, and maybe even things that sneak in there that you never ever suspected, like, writing in a different genre or creating something completely different from books. Like, I think if you're open and you're creative and you're in alignment with the right energy, like I said, with the intentions, I think a lot of cool things can unfold for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And you keep giving me great ways to end it, and I keep like I have one more thing that I have to talk to you about because it's something that I meet a lot of authors doing a lot of shows, and uh, none of them have as good a website as you. None of them.
Wow.
Zero of them. In fact,
You
about
made my day.
90% of them don't have a website. Like, I usually have a much better website than all of the people that are my guests, and I can say unequivocally that your website is like leaps and bounds better than mine. And I want you to talk. Can you talk for a second about the importance of having a website? Because, like, I didn't know who you were at the show. And then I came back and I had a little stack of cards. And then I looked at your site, and I didn't even have to know who you were after that. I was like, oh, she's the real deal, because like I just saw the site, and then that you friended me on Facebook before I had a chance to do it to you, which I always appreciate, and I know means that someone's legit. And
Wow.
serious.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the huge compliment. Yeah, so when I first started, I created my own website. And I did okay at it. I mean, I used to teach HTML on the college level, but, it had limitations. And when I first started, I only had one book. And so I pretty much created the website around that book, not realizing I was going to have, more books and a whole brand and then expansion beyond that. So I had a lot of frustration, I guess, over the years where I was trying to Frankenstein my existing site into something that could grow when it just wasn't built for that, So I guess a year ago, around this time last year, I started getting ready to launch my romance novel. And at that point, like, I had 2 albums come out. I'd had a beauty line debut. I had all these things that were beyond my old site and weren't on there. And I was like, gosh, I really want something that represents me, that really embodies who I am and what I want to accomplish in this world and has the right energy and just is me, and then also ticks all the boxes for the business stuff, like has all the downloadables, has media interviews, has all the things that you would expect if you went to the website of a writer and a speaker and an entrepreneur. So I started, like, it was actually a lot of work, like getting my mind around what do I want this representation of me to be? It's not for kids. It's not for kids, but it's not designed as a kid experience. It's more of the overarching brand, which is all about love, bliss, and inspiration. And then all these other things exist within that. And because they're so different, but unified under that theme, it took a while for me to figure out what categories am I going to sort my life into, And so I had a giant, you call it, the big sheets of paper, like they're like almost as tall as me, laid out on the dining room table, and I'm writing things down, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get rid. The other thing is choosing what not to put in there, because I have hundreds of media interviews. I mean, hundreds over the years. And at the time in my old website, I would try to put them all on there, but it becomes unwieldy and nothing stands out. And so making decisions about what stays, what goes, what's important, what isn't. The same thing you do when you're creating a business, right? Like, we all have many more gifts than we are able to share through our business. So it's deciding what are you going to focus on, and what goals do you want the person to achieve when they come to your site. Like for me, I wanted people to know I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I have books for sale. I would love to come speak at your event. Here's the type of events I do. Here's the topics I like to talk about. I love being guests on media shows. I love connecting with fans. Like, here's free stuff that you can get if you want to use my books in the classroom, all those things. And I wanted them to see, like, there's a lot going on in my local community too. So I was able to work with a web developer who happened to be in India, and we would talk via Skype. And, I would share my vision, and he would come back with drafts and mock-ups of things, and we would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then the final result was so amazing. I was like, wow, he really got it, and I was so grateful. And I had a graphic designer who did my logo, the Sheri Fink logo, the Love, Bliss, Inspiration. And he worked on a few images for the site. And then my illustrator actually designed the Whimsical World of Sheri Fink logos. So, yeah, it was just a huge undertaking, and it debuted in January of this year. And before that, I would be kind of nervous about people saying, hey, I looked at your website, because I was like, wow, it just really doesn't represent me. But now I'm like, yeah, go take a look at my site. Like, I'm proud of it. And I think that unleashes you too to be bolder and to ask people, like, hey, do you want to do this thing together? Do you think this would be a fit? And then they can just look at your site and know, like you said, in an instant, like who I am, what I'm about, and what I'm working on. Okay. So and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and to me, like I met you in person first, and when I went to your site, I was like, oh, of course this is the site that you would have. Like, of course. Of course. Like there's no doubt in my mind that, like, everything on that site spoke to the human being that I met in person, which is it's not normal for, like, usually a site either has no personality or it has a personality that is wholly different than the human being that I've met.
I really appreciate that. And I especially appreciate that I am not normal. That is a true statement. Me or my website.
Well, I mean, your website's much different than mine. Mine's the tagline for mine is "Make it once, sell it forever." It's about, like, practical advice for how to turn your art into a business. Like, that's the stuff that I talk about. And so my site is much, like, more muted tones. It's just a much different site. But I do think that it represents the human being that you meet when you come to see me in person. Just like this site represents who you are when you see you in person. At least I think so.
Thank you. I agree. I feel really good about the website, and it was probably one of the best investments I made in my business since I started, was actually, like, stepping up my game and saying, this matters. And the way I represent myself in the world matters. Like, I don't just throw things out there, like I come from the heart, but I think about it before I post it, because I want things that represent what I stand for and that inspire people. And like every day, like, I want to feel passionate and loving and inspiring. And if my presence isn't representing that both in person and online, then there's a disconnect, Absolutely. And I find it very important to be in alignment with whatever your message is and whatever you're passionate about. So it's and it's liberating. It's very liberating to know that everything's in alignment, whether it's your logo or your social media presence, or, it just feels good knowing that it's all representative of who you really are.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key to a consistent brand, to like building a brand, right? Is the consistency of message and person and all of these things converging together.
Yes. And as you notice on my site, there are opportunities to buy things, but it's not the focal point. And I really like that about it too, because I have a very great appreciation for e-commerce, but I didn't just want an online store. I wanted a place where people can, like, dig in and, like, be mesmerized by cool things, or at least things that I think are cool. So
Right. But that's good, because, like, the things you think are cool, things your audience will think are cool, are how you can get them to resonate find the people that resonate on the right frequency.
Yeah, and I think that is the art of business. That's what it is. That's the core of it. Everything else stems out from that.
Awesome. 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 And there we are going to end it, except that I want to tell you to tell the people that are listening how we can find you and what you're working on these days.
Okay, great. Well, you can find me on my website, and that's www.sherifink.com. I'm also very active on my Facebook fan page, which is facebook.com/SheriFinkFan. And on Instagram and Twitter, I am SHERI_FINK. And I do write back to people who write to me. I love hearing from fans. And what I'm working on these days, I'm actually doing a ton of speaking right now, and it's super fun because it's for very diverse groups, different charities. Like I'm speaking for, like just spoke for the Girl Scouts recently, like 2 days ago, doing things for charity events and writers conferences, and just very diverse groups and different aspects, but still empowering, and I love that. And I'm working on a couple of creative things. I may have another children's book coming soon. I haven't committed myself fully to it yet because I know that when I do, it's serious time to ramp up. But in the meantime, next week I'm traveling to Miami to accept an award for Cake in Bed and for the Reader's Favorite International Book Award. So pretty stoked about that. And I just released magnets of 2 of my characters, and those are going really well, like at the festivals and in-person events. So playing around with some merchandise, starting small on that, testing things out, and we'll see. I'm very excited for the growth in the new year, though.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And finally, give us your best piece of parting advice that you haven't given already.
Oh my goodness. No pressure.
Nothing with the word magic in it or magical.
Yes, I see. Okay. So I would say, it sounds so simple, but just be yourself. Grow the business that you really want to have, and you can take other people's input, but don't adopt it if it doesn't feel organic for you. Like, write the book you really want to write. If you want to write about robots, write about robots. If you want to write a nonfiction book, do that. Like, I would just, everything good comes from being who you are. And that's when you do attract the right people and opportunities into your life. That's when people resonate with you the most, and they can feel your authenticity. So I guess be your authentic self would be my best advice. And then don't let it go. Like, keep going for it. Like, it's not easy. Every day you got to wake up and make a decision. Am I jumping off the cliff today or am I not? And you get up and you jump, and you trust that an angel's going to catch you, or a bridge is going to form, or you're going to sprout wings, or something is going to happen because you decided to make the leap. And I call it rise and grind. There are days when you just have to get up and get it done. And sometimes that's 16 hours. Like, sometimes it's not. And just accepting that your dream is worth it. And you should just go after it with ferocity and play to win in life.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This was fun. I'm all fired up now.
So that was Sheri Fink from the whimsical world of Sheri Fink. And I hope you got a lot out of that, because she dropped knowledge bombs all throughout. I love, love, love when people come on and talk about providing value first. I love it when they talk about, well, all the stuff that Sheri talked about, and I hope you do too. If you do love this show, head on over to thebusinessofart.us/iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review us today. It's the best way for us to find new people to help. And it helps more than you will ever know. We're also available on Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Thanks so much, wannabes and creators. I will see you next time.